We're here with Leo Martin, the founder and operator of the Ginny Museum here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Thanks for being with us, Leo.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Leo, what is the significance of the Ginny Museum?
Well, here at the Ginny Museum, we tell a story about how 51 people changed the world as we know it today. And it's such an important story that 102 people came here, lost half their population, and 51 people today formed our country.
So we're here at Plymouth Rock. Most people have heard about Plymouth Rock, but what is the significance, and really, is this actually the rock that the Pilgrims stepped on, landed on? What is the significance of Plymouth Rock?
Well, that's a good question, and I gotta be honest, tens of thousands of people come to Plymouth every single year just to see the rock. And I have to be honest, when most of them show up, they are somewhat underwhelmed.
Sure.
But if you know some of the stories, it makes it better. In the 1700s, the town of Plymouth was going to build a pier over that rock. The elder of the church, Elder Fons, walked 3 miles to say goodbye to Plymouth Rock. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but keep in mind, Elder Fons was 95 years old when he walked those 3 miles. Poor man reached the rock, he had tears in his eyes. Folks in town looked at him and said, "Hey, Elder Fons, what's the big deal? It's a rock." He said, "Oh no, that's not a rock. That's the rock. That's where the Pilgrims step when they get off the Mayflower." Well, the folks looked at him again and said, "How do you know that?" He said, "For crying out loud, I'm 95 years old. I knew them. They told me that." Yeah, and he was such a man of high character and integrity, everybody believed him. We never built the pier. I, for one, also believe him. I do believe that's where the Pilgrims step when they get off the Mayflower. However, I will assume you'll probably agree with me. They must have got out in single file. This is very important. If we can't own property, we have absolutely no power. Whoever owns the property we do business on will be our master, we will be their slave. We have to have the ability to own property. And the number one property the Pilgrims believed they owned and nobody had a right to touch was their conscience, what they believed. What you believe is your property. Nobody has a right to take it from you. And that's why the Pilgrims came to Plymouth.
So the Pilgrims purchased the land from the Native Americans here. They did not take it.
Initially, they took the land that nobody wanted because of the plague. Everything after that, they purchased from Massasoit. And if you want proof, I do have deeds in my museum that shows you the voluntary exchange of land from an Indian to a European. As a matter of fact, Governor Bradford made it a law that if you were going to buy land from the Indians, you had to get permission from Massasoit.
So right around the corner we have the site of the first house, but before we go over there, we come across this giant sarcophagus. There's real bones in here, right?
You bet. Our 51 Pilgrims are inside that box.
Wow.
But you can see by the box we have a little problem. The box tells us 104 came on the Mayflower. I keep telling you 102. Which one of us is right? We both are. 2 were born at sea.
Oh, okay.
Oceanus Hopkins was born halfway across the ocean, so they named the poor kid Oceanus. Peregrine White, Provincetown Harbor, vaulted the population up to 104. But 51 still did die that first horrible winter.
So this is the location where the peace treaty with the Native Americans was signed. This peace treaty is the longest lasting peace treaty in American history, correct?
Correct.
So under that peace treaty, there was an Englishman who actually was executed by other Pilgrims, right? For killing a Native American?
Correct.
So that goes completely against what a lot of people think about, that we came here to kill all the Indians, Native Americans, and take their land. We actually established government, the Mayflower Compact, the peace treaty with the Native Americans, right here in this location, that set a moral standard, a moral value system that didn't matter if you were Native American or an English pilgrim.
Yes. Now keep in mind, when we came here to establish law, we came here to establish biblical law. Any other law can be changed. If you want me to set the law, no problem in the world, I'll do it. Want me to be king, I'll be king. But what's going to happen if I set the law today, next week I'm going to change it in my favor. See, but I can't change God's law. So without this constant, without that truth, you cannot have a civil government. Now, if you're going to set that truth and everybody's equal under the law, it means everybody, including the people you meet, the Indians. So these three Europeans killed an Indian on the Rhode Island border. 2 were captured and brought back to Plymouth for a trial, and the 2 men were found guilty and they were hung.
Wow.
Because we're all equal under the law. So when you look at what the Pilgrims did, no, they did not come in here to attack Indians, to steal land, or to kill people. They came to start a society. Do you ever wonder why the Indians just didn't wipe us out when we got off the Mayflower? Women and children got off the boat. We came as families. Why are we called America's hometown and not Jamestown? They went there to strike it rich. We came here as a society. Big difference.
Big difference. To talk about Jamestown, they were founded by the Virginia Company, London Company, stock companies, right? They were out for gold and their own prosperity, correct?
Correct. They were out there for riches. Now, they also said they were out there to spread the word, to spread the gospel. But let's look at the difference. When the people landed in Jamestown, they got off the boat and they planted a cross. Right next to it, the flag of England.
Okay.
So now they're claiming that land for England.
So Jamestown was an extension of England, but Plymouth was a defiance against England.
Correct. So they claim that land for King James. We came here to escape King James.
So that is really the essence of why this is America's hometown, because it was a direct defiance against English government, direct defiance against the king. So this was the start of something new.
Completely new. I'm trying not to take anything away from Jamestown. Jamestown did birth our country, no doubt. But we're America's hometown because we built families. We built a society based on biblical law. Big difference. When you plant a flag for a country like England, you're claiming that land for England. So what does that mean to you? This is England's land. We can push everybody else off. We didn't do that. We claimed the land as families. And we would not touch the land or take the land unless we legally did it with permission.
We talk about moral value, we talk about moral standard, we talk about the foundation that the Pilgrims came here on. The next spot we're going to go to is the largest granite monument in the United States of America, and it really incorporates all of these principles that the Pilgrims were founded on. So Hammett Billings designed this.
Yes.
And he was a architect, or was he a...
He was an architect from Boston, and again, a Christian. Favorite book of the Bible, Revelation. He had over 60 portraits of Revelation in his work in Boston, and there is a little of it here in the monument. But he was also an abolitionist. He actually did the drawings for the original Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. At the time, he was also considered the finest drawer of the human figure in the country. His detail was unsurpassed, as you can see in the monument.
So this statue was built as a beacon of light to the entire nation, that if this country ever goes astray from our moral standard, this was the representation of our moral standard. This was a representation of the fundamental foundation that this country was built on itself.
Correct. And as you follow the statues around, you can see how they emphasize each area that the Pilgrims came here to improve their lives on. As we go through law, external, education, incredibly important. Pilgrims felt if their kids couldn't read and write, they wouldn't know right from wrong. Education was very important to them, and a lot of people don't think it was. Because when we came here, we didn't have a formal school, which we didn't. We didn't have enough children, but believe me, they were well educated. They learned at home, their parents taught them. They even had a textbook back then. We call that textbook the Bible today. But they had supplementary materials. Governor Bradford himself brought over 400 books with him on the Mayflower. The governor could speak 5 languages. Harvard University, right down the street, founded the same year as our gristmill, 1636, was founded when a young man named John Harvard donated his library to start the university. William Bradford brought more books with him on the Mayflower than John Harvard donated to Harvard University.
I just want to read for a second a segment of Harvard's original mission statement. World-renowned school, some consider it the most prestigious school in the country, but this is the original mission statement of Harvard. Let every student be plainly instructed and earnestly pressed to consider well the main end of his life and studies is to know God and Jesus Christ, which is eternal life, and therefore to lay Christ in the bottom as the only foundation of all sound knowledge and learning. And seeing the Lord only giveth wisdom, let everyone seriously set himself by prayer in secret to seek him. I mean, we talk about education, we talk about the moral standard, the moral value, the foundation of our country that this represents. And it really is a biblical foundation.
People need to know this story.
Absolutely.
If you don't know where you came from, you do not know where you're going.
Correct.
We need to learn where we came from.
Well, hey, I thank you so much for joining us today and enlightening us with so much information about our forefathers. And where can people get in touch with you if they want to take your tour around Plymouth? Where can they come to get the more in-depth story of our forefathers? And
my wife and I run the Jenny Museum right down here on Summer Street in Plymouth. That is where we give tours every day. We give tours of the town of Plymouth, of the monument, and a lot of the information I told you today in the tours. We also run a museum in a building that was built in 1749 where we tell the story of how 51 pilgrims changed the world as we know it today.